Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Let me begin by thanking Brattleboro and the entire state of Vermont for the extraordinary support we had during the presidential run. We have, during the campaign, we won in some 22 states and came very close in a bunch of others. But of all of the victories, what was most meaningful to me was the fact that we won 86% of the vote here in the state of Vermont. So Vermont, Brattleboro, thank you very much. I don't have to tell any person here that our state and our country face some very, very serious problems. And these are problems that are not going to be solved by 30-second negative ads. These are problems that are going to have to be dealt with by millions of people coming together. And right now, of all of the problems that I worry about, and one that is very relevant to the folks who are up here, is that in many respects, this country is losing its democratic traditions and is moving toward an oligarchic form of society, where the billionaire class not only wants to control our economy, they also want to buy elections. And that is why every person up here and the entire Vermont congressional delegation believes that it is absolutely essential for the future of American democracy that we overturn this disastrous Citizens United Supreme Court decision. Just yesterday, I got a call from one of the leading national Democrats who was working very hard to see that the Democrats regain control of the U.S. Senate. And what he said to me, that is a big issue, and what he said to me is that in the last 2 weeks alone, just in the last 2 weeks alone, a handful of billionaires are pouring $36 million into 6 U.S. Senate races in the last 2 weeks alone. And that's just some from one group of people. And obviously, Citizens United, as Sue Minter will tell you in a moment, has come to the state of Vermont. And we got billionaires through phony front groups putting ugly ads on television against her. Our job in this small state is to lead the country in revitalizing American democracy. And we need everybody's help to do this. And I think the point that Sue will make and that David will make and that TJ will make is that they can't do it alone. Nobody can do it alone. Nobody has all the ideas. We need to do this together. How do you revitalize Vermont democracy and American democracy? How do you have people with different points of view discuss the issues civilly, intelligently? How do we mobilize large numbers of people to have our government represent working families and the middle class and not just the people on top? That's what our goal is. It is not easy. But for one absolute fact is they can't do it alone. They need your help. Number two, when we talk about what's going on in the United States, it's not only the movement toward billionaires controlling the political process, it is the fact that for the last 40 years, despite a significant increase in technology and worker productivity, most of our people are working longer hours for lower wages. And we have, by far, the most unequal distribution of wealth and income of any major country on earth. We cannot push that issue underneath the carpet. We got to bring it out and ask whether or not we feel it is moral and acceptable that in the United States of America, the top 1/10 of 1%, not 1%, 1/10 of 1% owns as much wealth as the bottom 90%. Whether we think it is acceptable that one family, the Walton family of Walmart, owns more wealth than the bottom 40%. Whether we think it is acceptable that at a time when we have the highest rate of childhood poverty of any major country in the last 16 years, we have seen a 10-fold increase in the number of billionaires in America. So the dynamic is people on top doing phenomenally well, middle class continues to shrink, parents are scared to death about the fact that their kids, for the first time in the modern history of this country, may have a lower standard of living than they do. And then we don't talk about it. You can't find anything about the media on this. You got 43 million people living in poverty, many of them really suffering in extreme poverty. You got elderly people in Brattleboro, Burlington, all over this country trying to make it, disabled veterans trying to make it on $11,000, $12,000 a year at a time we're seeing a huge increase in the number of billionaires in America. That is not only an economic issue regarding the sustainability of our economy when so few have so much and so many have so little, it is a moral issue. And then you got other issues. You know, very often people come up to me and they say, well, Bernie, what is the most important issue? And I can't come up with the most important issue because all of these issues are of enormous consequence. How is it that we remain the only major country on earth not to guarantee health care to all people as a right? Why is that? Why is it that we spend more money, far more money per capita on health care than do the people of any other country, and our health care outcomes, if anything, are worse than many other major countries in terms of our life expectancy, infant mortality, and so forth and so on? Right now, I'm working with folks in California who have a proposition on the ballot to lower the cost of prescription drugs, which is one of the great healthcare crises in this country. When we talk about a rigged economy and a corrupt political system, right now in California, the pharmaceutical industry, which charges us the highest prices in the world for the medicine we use, such that 1 out of 5 Americans who get a prescription from their doctors cannot even afford to fill that prescription. Pharmaceutical industry is spending $109 million in California to defeat that proposition. Can you believe that? $109 million. Because they know that if we win in California, it's going to spread all over this country. And then we got issues like criminal justice, and T.J. Donovan will talk about that. Question, why is it that in the wealthiest country in the history of the world, which is what we are today, why do we have more people in jail, disproportionately African American, Latino, Native American, than any other country on earth? All right, why is it that we are spending, and TJ will talk about this, more money locking up Vermonters than we are investing in higher education? Does that make sense to anybody? All right. Now, all of these issues, climate change, we have a candidate running for president of the United States who believes that climate change is a hoax. But everybody here in the audience understands that our planet is being threatened. And that if we do not get our act together and transform our energy system away from fossil fuel to energy efficiency and sustainable energy, what we're going to see is more drought, more floods, extreme weather disturbances, acidification of the ocean, rising sea levels, international conflict. That's what we're going to see. What role in that whole struggle to transform our energy system can a small New England state play? Well, it's a good discussion. I think we can play a very prominent role. Now, what this campaign is about is not only electing a very strong slate of Democratic candidates, and you got 3 of them up here. But it is about more than that. If Vermont does what I would like to see it do, become a model for this country in so many ways, whether it is climate change, whether it is criminal justice, whether it is economic development, how do you create good-paying jobs without bribing large corporations to come to the state? I was out in Nevada recently. In Nevada, the state government there is providing $750 million in tax breaks in subsidies to a billionaire, Sheldon Adelson, so they can build a large football stadium. Is that the kind of economic development that we want? All right. But how do we create good-paying jobs? How do we rebuild our agricultural economy? Tough stuff. Nobody has magical solutions. But we are not going to solve those problems unless we put them on the table, unless, as a small state, our people become engaged in those issues. Every psychologist understands that the years from 0 through 4 are the most important years of human development. And yet we have a dysfunctional child care system in Vermont and throughout this country. How do we create one that is affordable for working parents, where our little ones get the highest quality pre-K attention that they need? Tough stuff. All right? That is the goal. How do we do it? It is tough. We're a small state. You know, state government doesn't have billions of dollars in money lying around. But those are the issues that we have got to focus on. And nobody can do it alone. These guys can't do it alone. They need your help. But I think what we should be proud of is that we have a slate of candidates who are serious about addressing the real issues facing the state of Vermont, who are open to ideas about how we can go forward. Now, we got an election coming up in a week and a half. These guys, and let me be very clear about it, maybe with the exception of TJ, who I think is going to win, but he wants as many votes as possible. He wants a mandate. But for these two guys right next to me, here's the story. If there is a large voter turnout, if you're watching TV, and when the polls close, the announcer says there is a huge, I hesitate to ever use that word. I got to take it out of my vocabulary. But if there is a very, very large voter turnout on Election Day, Sue and David will win. But be clear, no. If there is a low voter turnout, they may very well lose. That's it. We got to be honest about it. So if you want them to win, you need a large voter turnout. That means not only everybody here voting, but it means dragging out reluctant voters, people who don't always vote. Voter turnout is high. I'm absolutely convinced both of them will win. Voter turnout is not, they may lose. And you don't want to wake up the day after the election with these guys losing.